that was also actually all the districts actually around there were actually picked up by Democrats this year. They used to be considered the more Reagan Republican country.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's more of the Democrat country now. But interestingly enough, because there was an interview actually that had actually occurred there, and they had asked a supermarket worker what they had thought of a job guarantee, and this single mom had said no, she doesn't think that it's a good idea. And the reporter was like, "Why?" And she said, because then people aren't going to work hard to get a job. They're just going to sit on their butts and they're going to just, have the government give them a job instead of actually working hard. She says she's going to college now. She's trying to become a nurse. And she doesn't think that the government should just make people nurses and pay for their college. She said that people should work for their education, should work for their job. And that's coming from someone who is a single mother with two kids, and she worked at a supermarket in the local area there. That's
Yeah,
just
I
one
mean, I think
circumstance. I
one of the
guarantee you
biggest,
there are many other circumstances like that. But the
and
fact
there
of the
probably
matter
other
is
many
that
many other circumstances the other way. But I think like the most important thing is really to have like the same thing. It's just make sure the biggest challenge for progressives is going to be make sure their policies are clearly understood. I think that's going to be the most important thing because there's going to be a lot of attempts. I think in the media you saw like on MSNBC today. To misrepresent them and to kind of smear them as something that they're not. And I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I'm saying it does happen quite a lot. But it's something that I think is going to be a big challenge for progressives to kind of define who they are, what they support, before anybody else does.
yeah, I mean, I do think that they do have to describe a lot of their proposals first. Especially the idea of the Green New Deal, which at first seemed like a great idea until I actually had read it and found that it was kind of chilled on the idea of getting rid of gas cars, which kind of upset me quite a bit. And the other thing that also quite upset me is that I don't know what I know Nancy Pelosi's opinion on the compensation raise for House members. She has said no to it. She said that $174,000 is more than plenty for many of our House members. The only people who would like a compensation increase is the Republican minority leader and some of the Republican congressmen, and Ocasio-Cortez, who had also said that it wouldn't be a bad idea because of a cost of living increase. But let me tell you one thing. $194,000 is much more than many of Americans make. I mean, that's like a dream salary if you think about it. I mean, that is more than what a teacher makes. That's more than what a custodian makes. That's more than what a store worker makes. That's more than honestly really the average person. The median salary in the U.S., I believe, is around $50,000 or $55,000.
Yeah, I think
That
it's very
is,
important also to like kind of look back at like what she added onto that because I think she mentioned a lot about kind of lobbying and kind of like corruption and that kind of outside dealing, the kind of speeches that wouldn't be necessary if there was a fundraising thing. But I do see, I kind of do disagree with her on this. But I do see her point, if you get what I'm saying, because I see
yeah,
why she would want it, but I think it's kind of better to not do it and instead focus on outlawing ideas like giving speeches to Goldman Sachs for money and stuff like that
yeah.
and taking.
I mean, I definitely do think that the compensation rise. I mean, I did remember her talking about the lobbyists that they would kind of persuade many House members not to go to the lobbyist method of trying to get money under the table. But I mean, the living increase I think she was saying was like a $6,000 or $7,000 increase on the salary. Many people might say, well, that's not a lot, but I mean, 181,000. I mean, that's still plenty. And the other fact of it is 184,000 for someone who is by themselves. I mean, I'm not, singling out Ocasio Cortez. Many of the House members are single and are probably living by themselves or maybe living with their parents. $174,000, I can guarantee you right now, is plenty enough for you to buy a house, buy a car, honestly, kind of live the high life in some sense. And in my opinion, I don't really think that it should really be that high of a salary. I mean, I think it should be based off what you get done. And I'm not saying what you get done on your bills. I feel as if that it should be based off what exactly is done and what is finished off on. And I think that the salary should kind of be voted on at the end of each and every term, which is every two
Mm.
years for the House and every 2 years for the Senate, because we see a trend. I mean, it's not even just the Democrats, even with the Republicans. We see a trend. Let's go to Washington, let's just sit back, relax, complain on the floor, get nothing voted on, go home, go on my private jet, come back tomorrow, do the same thing. It's a repeat cycle of doing nothing, getting paid $104,000 by the American people. In my opinion, I think it's a waste of money. I think that it should be paid off of what you get done because listen to this. Everyone else in the real world gets paid off of what they get done. They get raises based off how their performance in their job is. And I can tell you right now, the only type of the only type of salary change I will be doing right now to House members and to Senate members is probably a decrease. Not only have we gotten we've gotten more done in the House than the previous House did, but the Senate and the House have gotten basically probably 1% of the bills actually passed in both chambers. And I'm not blaming the House at all. But I do definitely have to question the fact of the salary. I mean, it's a pretty high salary. It definitely should be based off of really kind of what's done. And I think that what is also going to have to be looked at here is the benefits that you get. I mean, the benefits that some of these members are getting. I mean, look at Joe Crowley, for example. I mean, great example. I mean, he was there for 10 years. For many people who don't know him, I mean, you probably do know him. He was the former representative from New York's 14th Congressional
He's
District,
the person
now
who
represented
AOC beat. Yeah.
by AOC. That guy is getting a pretty nice hefty pension for 10 years of basically doing nothing, in my opinion.
And now he's working as pretty much a lobbyist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's pretty much working as a lobbyist. He's working with a building firm out in Long Island City, which is in Queens, west part of Queens. It overlooks Manhattan. It's pretty gentrified now. I mean, it's very expensive to live there. And interestingly enough, I mean, even looking at the Queens DA race, Long Island City, a lot of white people live there now, and a lot of them are pretty wealthy. That was a stronghold for Tiffany Caban. All the other areas that were more wealthy, like Bayside and Astoria, were a little bit more tilted to Melinda Katz, who was the other candidate there. I mean, that was just some interesting stuff I would have to say. And Joe Crowley also,
and a lot of Asian and Latino communities, Caban also did really well in as well. But yeah, I did kind of want to move on here. Sorry to kind of interrupt, but I think we should lighten the load a little bit with John Delaney. He is running for president. If you don't know, he's a former governor. And his presidential campaign isn't looking so good. Axios reported this morning that Delaney's senior staff sat him down and told him to drop out of the race by the middle of August, throwing in the towel on a costly campaign that Delaney has been running since 2017, believe it or not. And the campaign isn't expecting him to qualify for a third round of debates in September. His polling sucks, and he's hemorrhaging his own money. Delaney squeaked onto the stage for the upcoming debate in July in CNN, but everyone, apparently, including his own senior staffers, figured he's doomed in the next round, which has much higher barriers to entry. Some of the more anonymous quotes from Axios here. They thought he flopped in the first debate in Miami. There was no real breakout moment, which everyone in leadership has been hoping for. Every other day, he would have a different position, whether on economic policies or racial issues. That's a common refrain that came up in my conversations with the sources close to the campaign. This is the reporter. Earlier this month, Politico also reported former Governor John Hickenlooper's campaign was in shambles for similar reasons, with his senior staff also telling him to throw in the towel. Turns out inspiring exactly nobody is not a winning strategy for president. And others, this is from the article here, and others who have made sure to tell me they genuinely like the guy, painted Delaney as a Republican Democrat who's just not made for this moment, which is kind of weird because, people aren't connecting with the guy who, for some reason, tried to debate an enormously popular member of Congress who isn't even running for president and got shot down, which is back, if you're wondering what I'm saying, AOC tried to... literally, AOC has probably 20,000 times the relevance of John Delaney. Medicare for all, the kind of the sashay away tweet, if you remember that. That's what he tried to do, which wasn't working. He just needs to go. He just needs to go. And definitely some weird stuff. Outside forces that had undue influence on his campaign, such as John Delaney's wife, interestingly enough, we'll see Delaney perhaps one last time on the debate stage in July 30th. We'll probably take his shots at Bernie Sanders and Medicare and Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All plan and probably get booed again. So, yeah, what's your reaction to John Delaney and his kind of failures?
Well, I mean, John Delaney, he never really was a surfer on the wave. I mean, he's like one of those surfers who kind of out there like, oh yeah, I'm good at surfing. He can never get the wave. I mean, he's just falling off the surfboard. I mean, he's like the surfboard's hitting his head. It's like a whole disaster out there.
Spent
I mean, looking at him like,
$11 million. It's crazy.
yeah, and all in private money. I mean, it wasn't even doing
Yeah.
anything. It's like just spend my savings on this. I mean, he's like literally like this man. I mean, this man must have like a chest full of money. I swear, because I don't know who in the heck of this world would actually spend $11 million on a campaign that's probably going to fail. I mean, in a way, I mean, you look at him. I mean, I consider him a virgin Joe Biden in some sense. I mean, he's pretty loud on the stage, but he has nothing really, I mean, to say about many of the things. I mean, yeah, he's gone against Medicare for All quite a lot. Gotten booed on the stage quite a bit. His poll numbers have not been too good ever. He's never really gotten onto the wave of, this sort of trend for some of the moderate candidates. I mean, Klobuchar has been just a little bit of a rise actually in the polls for her. Delaney's just, I mean, basically the only people who have been rising in the polls have been shockingly Buttigieg, who I don't know how the heck in the world he actually had made $24.8 million, which is a ridiculous amount of money that he had made. Also, by the way, Buttigieg is an interesting guy. He has like zero support in the black community. So, I mean, if he's actually the nominee.
Insane.
Yeah. Like, just, I don't know how the heck he's going to win. I mean, this guy, he's so creepy, Buttigieg and Delaney. I mean, both of them are just so creepy in this race. Like, Buttigieg is almost like the serious guy, but he looks like a little kid. Like, Delaney's the same type of guy. He's not very serious, but he looks like a little kid, and everyone's like, oh, okay, this guy's crazy. Buttigieg is also a little bit off. But Delaney's campaign never really had a pretty fast start like many of these other campaigns had in the election. I mean, he's been in this race since, I believe, 2017. I mean, he didn't even run for this House district in 2018 for this. And I mean, he just kind of ruined his whole career, in my opinion, because he could probably run this House district again. He probably will win. That's not really the problem, but I think that he definitely did waste his time here and his money with this campaign that just kind of went down the drain in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely a rough situation. All right, let's just quickly do some of the lineups for the debates. Just to let you know, we have Bullock, Buttigieg, Delaney, Hickenlooper, Klobuchar, O'Rourke, Ryan, Sanders, Warren, and Williamson, all on one stage. Tough that Bernie will not be going head-to-head with Biden, which can be interesting, or Elizabeth Warren going head-to-head with Biden for that matter. On July 31st, candidates who will debate will be Biden, Bennett, Booker, Castro, de Blasio, Gabbard, Gillibrand, Harris, Inslee, and Andrew Yang. All right, so those are who we have for the debate lineups. Finally, just want to do one last story. We mentioned Katie Hill, the Political Action Committee affiliated with Bipartisan Caucus on Capitol Hill, is spending money to back a Republican challenge to Representative Katie Hill of California, a freshman Democrat who's been independent and at times progressive in the House, despite serving a district previously held by the GOP. Hill is what's considered a frontliner in Democratic caucus politics because she'll face a difficult challenge to hold on to her seat in California's 25th district. Mike Garcia, an Iraq War veteran, launched his campaign in April, and the With Honor PAC jumped in to support him that same month. House Democratic leadership crafts its entire political and legislative strategy around protecting frontliners like Hill, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi recently chastised the caucus for criticizing former frontliners, suggesting that they hit her instead, i.e., AOC and some of the more moderate representatives. Which, by the way, I don't get how any of what AOC has going to have an impact on their election chances, but still, whatever. That's not the point. That makes the support for the Republican challenger for the Four Country Caucus, which includes 10 Democrats, fairly remarkable, particularly as House incumbents have launched a full-blown counter-revolution against the so-called Squad and the organization that backs them, just as Democrats, accusing them of undermining the party by targeting incumbents. So literally what they're doing here for the Four Country Caucus and their PAC is supporting the Republican challenger in this Katie Hill race, which is very, very interesting. The caucus is co-chaired by California Democrat Jimmy Panetta, who is first elected in 2016 and is the son of longtime Democratic operative and former Representative Leon Panetta. Includes Democratic Representative Seth Moulton, he's running for president, Christy Houlihan, Gil Cisneros of California, Jason Crow,